This Big 12 Game of the Week, final edition of Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12 on the Big 12 College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, is brought to you by Game Time. Snag those tickets without stress. Use the promo code SGPN on your first purchase. Save $20. Download the Game Time app and use the promo code CFBX. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has just added Pick'em Scorchers where you can hit up to 100 times the value. That's right. Your turn to turn $5 into $500. Plus, every Sunday, they're giving away $100,000. Use the promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus up to $500. And welcome, everybody, back to the Big 12 College Experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. We're moving along in the Big 12 slate. We got two unbeatens, the final time in the Big 12 before they head off to that conference, the Southeastern Conference. Well documented. I am not a fan of either of these teams, but I'm a big fan of this game. I'll be the first to tell you I love the Red River Shootout. Yes, we still call it the Red River Shootout here over on the Big 12 College Experience. But if you're wondering who you're listening to, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. No Troy and no Rush today. They are out. They're boycotting because Oklahoma and Texas are leaving the Big 12. So you're just stuck with me. But I got a special guest coming on to talk Red River Shootout. Before we bring him on, let's talk about this rivalry. Texas leads the all-time series 63-50. Texas is coming off the biggest margin of victory for the Longhorns, 49-0 in year one of the Brent Venables era. Before that, Oklahoma had won 4 in a row. Oklahoma had been kind of having the upper hand in this rivalry, but all of a sudden now Steve Sarkisian able to right the ship last year. They go 49-0 over the Oklahoma Sooners. So that means revenge on the mind of the Sooners. So let's bring in Texas fans and Oklahoma fans. This is even better. I'm bringing in an Aggie to talk Red River Shootout, and he is Mr. Jay Arnold. He is from the Get Back Coach. He's over at the Aggie War Pod. Jay, what's going on, man? Former Texas A&M Aggie, former Big 12 member. How are you doing, my man?
Hey, Mac, I appreciate you having me on. I mean, it is funny, right? Being the Aggie coming on to talk about the Red River Shootout, but I am a college football fan first and foremost before anything. And this is one of the few games in college football that I would say is fine with being a neutral site game and one of the games that you have to attend if you're a fan of the sport.
100%. And, they got to keep it at the Cotton Bowl. They got to keep it with the State Fair. So, Jay, you're from the Dallas area. Talk about just growing up, like you said. You're a fan of this game. You did play Texas A&M, but you're like me. You don't like either of these teams, but you like this game. You like the culture. This is college football. Texas, Oklahoma, they fucking hate each other. It's fantastic.
Yeah, this is, again, like I said, one of those games that I think is just circled every year as a great rivalry game. And growing up in DFW, it was a big part of the fall. I mean, it's held there at the State Fair in Texas at the old Cotton Bowl site, which, by the way, I'm kind of mad that the game isn't played there anymore, the actual Cotton Bowl. But we still have the Red River Shootout, and it provides some incredible visuals. I mean, you go to the game, and the stadium is pretty much split 50-50 with the crimson of Oklahoma and the burnt orange of Texas. It's just really cool to see, and it's such a historical game. I've been lucky enough to attend it once myself, and I mean, the atmosphere is just incredible. The State Fair just kind of adds to everything. Everybody's going in to have a good time, and man, it should be another fantastic edition of the game this year with both of these teams looking to cement themselves atop the Big 12.
100%. And so what year did you go? because I got the history of the rivalry pulled up. Do you remember off the top of your head which year it was?
I do not. I want to say it was either 15 or 16.
15 or 16. Was
Yeah.
that the year that Charlie Strong pulled the upset?
Yes, it was the year
Yes,
that Charlie
yes.
Strong pulled the upset.
See, yeah.
And I grew up an OU fan, so I mean, if I have to pick a team to root for, I'm going to pick OU, obviously.
Oh yeah, and you're an Aggie,
and I'm an Aggie, so
Yeah.
it's just kind of double. And my sister went to OU, I went to A&M, so I have a lot of reasons to root against Texas.
Yeah.
But it's again, game recognizes game, and this is one of the most fun matchups that you get in a college football year.
100%. And, we're going to dive into, first up, we'll do the Oklahoma Sooners, but we'll do it on the other side. Then we'll do those filthy Texas Longhorns after. But first, we got to talk about game time, because if you're looking to get over to the Cotton Bowl, you want to get over to the Red River Shootout, the final Big 12, buy your tickets. It shouldn't be that stressful. You shouldn't be pinching every little last penny in your wallet just to get over the Cotton Bowl. You just want to have a nice funnel cake. Get drunk at the game, have a good time. Game time is the best way to do so. And the fastest, easiest way to buy tickets for all sports, comedy, music, and a theater near you with killer last-minute ticket deals and your best price guaranteed, so you can stop stressing over and start getting hyped for the Red River Shootout. Planning's overrated. Game time has the deals you need right up to the day of the game. I used Game Time this week, and I actually went to UNLV in Hawaii at that Raider Stadium. And, I last minute got on Game Time, best price guaranteed, and exclusive flash deals for tickets, football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, and more. And they give you images of the seat, so you're not stuck behind a pole and obstructed view where you get ripped off. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Tickets sent directly to your phone, so you don't even have to dig through your email. And use the promo code CFBX. We are also brought to you by, I was jumping ship there. So we're back on the Big 12 college experience. I'm used to having another ad read, but we're working smarter over here and less ad reads here, and that's good. That means we can talk more Sooners and Longhorns. So the Sooners, kind of a cupcake. They had a cupcake non-con schedule. Took care of business. Arkansas State, Tulsa, SMU was a solid win. 2-0 to start. What's your initial thoughts on the Sooners in year number 2 of the Brent Venables era?
To be honest with you, I still don't have a feel for what this Oklahoma Sooners team is. It's like you said, I mean, there wasn't a lot in the non-con schedule to kind of give us a hint. The SMU win is probably their best win so far. You could make the argument that Cincinnati or Iowa State, but you look at Cincinnati, and Cincinnati hasn't done too much in non-con, and Iowa State has struggled as well. I still wonder, how the defense is going to look when they go up against some better offenses. Obviously, that was the big issue with Oklahoma last year, is they didn't really have an identity. At least with like the Lincoln Riley era, you knew what you're going to get out of OU. Yeah. You knew it was going to be an incredible offense and a defense with holes. We didn't really see offensive or defensive, identity last year. There was it just seemed like a team that struggled to know who they were. This year, I think it's been a little bit better defensively, which, to be fair, you would expect him to take a step forward. Brent Venables is a defensive-minded guy. Offensively, I think they've been solid. Not like overly impressive, but good enough. But again, this is the biggest test of the year so far, and I think we find out more about what the Sooner squad is when they play Texas in the Cotton Bowl.
Completely agree. And Jay, I think last year was it was obviously a down year. It was the first losing season since the 90s for the Oklahoma Sooners when they lost that bowl game to Florida State. I think one of the main reasons, though, was, not to blame it on injuries, but when you lose a guy like Dillon Gabriel, he was kind of the heart and soul of that team, and he's done nothing but light it up. I know against kind of a softer schedule, which is what we're talking about. 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, over 1,600 yards. Troy, one of our other co-hosts on the Big 12 College Experience, gives out his player props literally every single week, and he hits the over. What are your thoughts on Gabriel in year number 2 in this Jeff Lebby offense?
Yeah, he's definitely executed, and to your point, You always wonder how it's going to be with the guy from injury. And I think Gabriel does have some limitations too that we saw at his time at UCF and the limited time that we saw him last year. But there's no doubt that this OU squad is better with Dillon Gabriel out there on the field. And I think he's improved as well this year and has taken a step forward in his game. Again, we'll see if he can keep that up now that the competition's ramped up a little bit. But by the same token, I mean, I'm a fan of Dillon Gabriel. I think he brings a lot to the table. And not having him last year against Texas was definitely a big part in why the Sooners struggled as mightily as they did. I'm not expecting the Sooners to put up another goose egg in 2023. I'll put it that way.
Brent Venables better hope that they don't put out another 49-0 goose egg, or his ass might be on the hot seat. That gets me right into my next question. Brent Venables, longtime defensive coordinator for Dabo Swinney. Clemson has had their struggles since Venables has left. I mean, it kind of feels like he was a little bit of the backbone of that defense, of that culture there at Clemson. What do you think of Venables and the fit at Oklahoma? Obviously, he worked for Stoops forever, so bringing him back home, one of their own, like they like to say, transitioning over from that Lincoln Riley. You talked about the identity where you just knew with Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, they just want to get up and down and outscore you. And it got into the playoff, but then we kind of see with USC, like you're not going to win the hard, big games that way. Do you think that Venables is the right guy to get this Oklahoma Sooners team to the next level and what's going to be the SEC next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's still kind of early in his tenure. We don't know exactly what the Venables experience is going to be. I do think that Oklahoma was kind of in a bad spot, right? They weren't expecting Lincoln Riley to leave. And I think that Venables was the right guy to hire in that moment because of what you mentioned with the Bob Stoops ties, being more of an Oklahoma cultural guy. I think they needed a little bit of stability to at least tide them over. I don't know that Venables is going to be the guy that leads Oklahoma in the SEC, right? Like, I'm not sure if he's going to be the guy that gets them over that hump. But I do think he was perfect for the situation that OU found themselves in after Lincoln Riley left. And I think he's gotten a bit of a unfair shake just because of the way the first year went and because of the situation that he walked into. You look at, the quarterback play that you mentioned that OU has had. I mean, going back
Heisman's.
to Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. I mean, and that's probably why I'm a little bit of a clouded judgment on Dillon Gabriel as well, is just because those are the guys that he's trying to fill the shoes of.
Caleb
Williams, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, it's a tough situation for everybody around this program to have walked into. And that's why I was always kind of like a wait and see approach on Venables. And he's still doing a good job recruiting as well. And that's going to be a big aspect of OU success in the SEC as well, just because everybody in the conference is going to be recruiting at a very high level. But as for will he keep his job and continue to be successful at OU or find the level of success that OU is striving for, I don't know yet. I think this game is going to tell us a lot, to be honest with you. I think it's a tough matchup for OU, and I don't know if they come out and win this game, but you want to see OU at least be very competitive. And I think, if it's kind of a dominant win for Texas, Venables is going to come under some pressure, fair or not, from the OU fan base, just because of the success that the Sooners have had against Texas recently. But again, this is why we watch college football. I mean, there's a lot of questions that we have to answer.
That's what I keep going with in this game. Like, I have no idea who I'm going to pick. The line is set at 6.5 or whatever it is now. I still don't know which way I'm leaning on that one. I'll probably end up going with the Sooners, but there's just so much unknown with Venables, Dillon Gabriel, because of the schedule that they play. We've seen Texas going to Alabama, so they're proven. Let me talk on a macro aspect here with Oklahoma. You obviously grew up an Oklahoma fan, Oklahoma Sooner fan. You have family that likes Oklahoma. You got friends that like Oklahoma. Are they happy that they're leaving the Big 12? Because I sense that it's kind of like fear of missing out, that if Texas leaves, they want to be a part of it. They want to keep the Red River Shootout. But like when you think of the Big 12, man, you think of Oklahoma and just the dominant era it's been over the last 20, 30 years, and they've made great runs in this league. What's the pulse of this fan base leaving the Big 12 in their final year?
It's mixed. I think, like you talked about, they feel kind of forced into making a move just because it's such an arms race with college football right now, and you have to keep up with the Joneses, as it were. And like you talked about, OU has been pretty much the face of the conference since the conference was founded. And I mean, to be fair, like the Big 12 hasn't been around for that long on the grand scheme of things, right? Like it was the Southwest Conference and the Big Eight coming together.
Big Eight,
and
yeah.
You have like all the it's not as historically bound as some of the other conferences, but I mean, we just saw what happened to the Pac-12, so it's not like history is the biggest factor in the world. But I think the biggest thing that I've talked to with OU fans is, they've always looked at it as their two biggest rivalries are Texas and Nebraska. And Nebraska made the jump to the Big Ten. Obviously, like the level of success that Nebraska has had isn't really, something that's wearing on OU. But this thing is probably moving towards like a super league type deal. And I think most OU fans, as much as they'd like to stay in the Big 12, where it's kind of a lot of fun for them as a program and a lot of good memories that they've had in the Big 12, you just kind of have that pressure to be able to keep up with the arms race in college football and make it to the SEC and be prepared for the next stage of realignment.
Is that I'm glad you mentioned Nebraska, because that's the team that kind of pops in my mind. Where is Oklahoma about to be the next Nebraska, where they go from being the class, the team that's in the hunt every single year in the Big 12 to a mediocre Big 10 because they really don't fit? I mean, I feel like Texas and Oklahoma will fit in fine in the SEC, but like you said, Oklahoma's kind of, and Texas been the face of the Big 12, especially Oklahoma with the success. Is the fear from the Sooner fans that they could potentially become the next Nebraska and ultimately be irrelevant, just a mediocre team that's making a lot of money from the TV deals?
Yeah, there's definitely some of that concern, but I think OU is better prepared for the shifting conference. For one thing, you're still playing against Texas schools. Oklahoma's biggest recruiting base is the state of Texas, so you're not losing that. OU, I think, has also been better at Nebraska at recruiting nationally. They've gone into places like California or Florida and pulled a few athletes out of there. Whereas Nebraska, you look at how they were so dominant in the 90s, especially, they were already starting to see a little bit of fall off in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Now, do I think they sped it up by going to the Big Ten and losing access to Texas as a recruiting ground? Yes. But I just think that OU, with the recruiting base that they've had and the fact that, it's not as dependent on one state necessarily, I think OU will be better suited to making the transition to the SEC than Nebraska was going to the Big Ten.
Understood. Yeah, no, I agree with you that they're still going to be playing Texas and then obviously your Aggies. So we will transition over to the dark side here on the other side. But first, we got to talk about Underdog Fantasy, because as a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long, Underdog has introduced Scorchers. Go 5 for 5 and pick up Scorchers and enjoy a spicy 100,000 or 100 times payout. It could be 100,000 if you bet 100. From now until October the 4th, Underdog is matching up to 100%. That's 1 day left of your first deposits up to $500. $100,000 Sundays continue on Underdog Fantasy. 10 lucky players will win $10,000 each. Well, let's talk about a little Underdog players that we like this weekend. I think the defenses are going to show out in this Texas-Oklahoma game. I think it's going to be a field position, old school game. So I'm looking at some unders on these player props. So when we get those on Thursday, tune back in and let's hammer some unders in this Texas-Oklahoma game. Watch along, make your picks, maybe make a little bit of cash. Underdog's mobile website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you use the sign-up promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $500. Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. And we're back on the Big 12 College Experience, talking Red River Shootout with Jay Arnold from the Aggie War Pod and Get Back Coach. All right, Jay, we put them off long enough. We talked about the other side, and I do have the line right here. Oklahoma, Texas, as of right now, a 6.5-point favorite for those watching on youtube.com/the college experience. Horns down is the emoji down there on the bottom side of the screen. Jay, what are your thoughts on these Longhorns this year? I mean, the question every year is Texas back? Well, I'll ask you, is Texas back?
It hurts me to say this. It hurts me to say this so much, but I think that this Texas team is a playoff contender. I think this team is a national championship contender. Part of that is I don't think anybody stepped up and proven themselves as a true number one in the nation this year. It feels like there's a little bit more parity, but also Texas is just good. They have struggled in the trenches, both sides of the ball, the past few years. And it feels like they've taken that step up there on the offensive and defensive lines. And that's why they're having more success. Quinn Ewers, I think, has had some good games, some bad games. Obviously, he looked great against Alabama. And I think this Texas team in general has a tendency to play their level of competition. The problem with that line of thinking is Oklahoma is their highest level of competition they've had so far. So you would expect another good game. Sorry, highest level of competition outside of Alabama.
Yes.
But the Sooners are, you're always going to get up for this game anyway, right? It's a rivalry game, similar to the backyard brawl where West Virginia is always going to get up for Pitt.
Each hit Pitt. Yep.
Exactly. When you have a team across from you that you hate, it's always easier to play a little bit harder. And I think you're going to see the Longhorns come out and play pretty well. So to answer the question, is Texas back? I mean, it depends on what you mean by back, but I do think they are a national title contender this year.
Yeah, that's such a bland question. I mean, from their standpoint, they think they're going to the national championship. Hold off on that. Let's see you beat Oklahoma and win a couple more games.
There's a lot of football left.
Correct. And we've seen Texas still has to go road trips to Houston. I know Houston's not very good, but that's an in-state battle. They still got to go to Fort Worth. They still play the Texas Tech guys as well and Oklahoma. So plenty of trap games left for the Longhorns that we've talked about over the years. They just have found ways to lose games. They've gotten some breaks here recently. They've played 3 straight backup quarterbacks, but I think you are 100% right, Jay, and you can't deny the talent. They went to Alabama, shut up the critics. Why has Steve Sarkisian been able to get the right guys, it seems, into this program to surround Quinn Ewers? Because I think Quinn Ewers is a little bit overrated, to be honest, but I think his team around him is really good.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the guys that Sarkis coached under for one, right? I mean, Pete Carroll, Nick Saban. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good lineage to come from. I think that Sark has always been a pretty good recruiter. He's been a guy that has learned a lot. I mean, you don't go to that Alabama staff and learn from Saban and not come away as a better recruiter. We've seen it with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. We've seen it with Loxley at Alabama or at Maryland. I mean, there's you name it, there's a lot of coaches. And obviously there's been varying levels of success. But I think the reason that Sarkisian is doing better is because he has placed an emphasis on getting those guys up front to kind of protect the guy in Quinn Ewers. Because if you have a cleaner pocket, it's a lot easier to be a better quarterback.
Yeah, and the skill guys on the outside are as good a group as in the country. Them probably Washington and Ohio State are probably the 3 best receiving cores. Talk a little bit about Quinn Ewers. It's a crowded quarterback room, obviously, with Murphy and Manning. I think if he had started slow at all, they would have been calling for either backup, just with how delusional the Texas fans are. Why has Quinn Ewers been able to kind of weather the storm? And he played probably his best game at Alabama.
Yeah, part of it is the weapons around him, right? Like when you have guys like Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, like that makes you look better as a quarterback.
Yes.
And then again, I mean, Jonathan Brooks as a running back, I've been impressed with his game a lot. I think he's somebody that's not talked about as much, and part of that is because of the steps of the shoes that he's filling, right? Yeah. I mean, when you're following Bijan Robinson, it's hard to live up to the expectation there. But I think like having those weapons around Quinn Ewers has helped them out a lot. And then again, Steve Sarkisian is a brilliant offensive mind. In my opinion, I think he's a great game planner, and knowing Quinn's limitations and what he does well and what he doesn't do well helps to maximize what he can produce out there on the field. And then the defense has stepped up, right? So like the defense is making plays. Most points allowed this year is 24 to that Alabama team that we mentioned. So it's when you have a lot of pieces around you, it kind of makes your job easier as a quarterback. But I agree with your point that if he had struggled at all, there would have been a lot of calls for Arch right away.
Yeah.
Especially now with the NIL money that I'm sure is involved, and boosters are involved with, which is kind of a dynamic that's weird to talk about. But no, I mean, sometimes out of a quarterback, all you want is somebody who's not going to turn the ball over too much. And Quinn's only thrown one interception this year, and I think that's another big part of his success.
I agree with that, and you mentioned it. His weapons, whether it's Worthy, Mitchell, Winningham, Sanders at the tight end, it helps you it makes you look good. So obviously, everybody thought that Texas was going to be back headed into the year. It was a big national narrative. It's not. It hasn't been a secret that they were talented. This was Sark's best team. If Texas is not going to win the Big 12, because the whole narrative going the year is this team is definitely going to win it. They're minus 115 to win it, I think now, or minus 105. So they're a heavy, heavy favorite. But we've seen them in this situation lay an egg. We've seen them throw up all over themselves and find ways to lose weird road games. If Texas is not going to win the Big 12, despite having the best roster for about the 15th straight year, what would be the reason why the Texas Longhorns did not win it all in Dallas this year?
Injuries can be a big factor too. I think that's not something to overlook. Is to really be a dominant team and a postseason team, you have to have a little bit of luck. I mean, just being 100% honest, things have to go your way, especially on the injury front. The only way that I really see Texas not winning this Big 12 would be injuries, especially if those are along the trenches up front. Because there are some games left, like you said, that Texas should be favored throughout the year, but that doesn't mean that won't shake out with Texas losing, right? Games aren't played on paper. And if you're Texas, that people are going to reserve their best stuff for you too.
Yes.
People are going to get into the playbook a little bit more, try to get you off script a little bit more. So there's going to be a little bit more aggression when you have that top spot, you have a target on your back. Now, I don't want Texas fans to read into that because, they're going to talk about the your Mark's comments before the season and the Big 12 is out to get them. If you're the top dog, if you're the team that's playing best in the conference, yes, everybody's going to be out to get you. So
yes.
That's what you want. Stop complaining about it. But I will say, I do expect this team to slip up at some point, but it's going to be how they manage that, right? Yeah. You can have a bad game like we just saw Georgia have against Auburn, but it's how you respond. Are you going to let that team jump up on you and kind of fold under the pressure, or are you going to respond and eke out a win? And I think this Texas team has a little bit more resiliency than we've seen in the past too.
Yeah, you're being kind. Fuck Texas. They act like they want the target on their back, but as soon as you say something about them, they start crying. Like you said, man, they are going to get everybody's best shot these last 6-7 games, and we'll see if they don't lay an egg for a change. I mean, until they do it, I mean, there's for example, a Kansas State could give them fits, and Iowa State has always given them fits. TCU. Let's talk about it for years.
I mean, their last two games against BYU.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a different BYU. It's not Taysom Hill there, but
yeah, if Jalen, they've played 3 straight backup quarterbacks. The Alabama win, very impressive. But if Jalen Daniels plays, it was a 6-point game and a half. I know they ended up grinding it out on the ground and gashing them for 600 yards. That's because Kansas couldn't keep the football because they had their backup quarterback in the whole time. Yeah. But let's talk about it on a macro aspect for you. You're Texas A&M, you're an Aggie. What's it going to be like getting that Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies rivalry back? That was always – I love that game. Yeah. Always, on Black Friday or Thanksgiving night. I wish it was back in the Big 12, but even with it going to the SEC, I'm excited to see it again.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where they kind of place that game as far as the schedule and over the course of the season. But growing up in Texas, even as an OU fan, like my Thanksgiving tradition, wake up, watch the Cowboys, even though I wasn't a Cowboys fan, and then
Yeah.
watch A&M and Texas play. Uh, it was just always a part of the culture for so long, and it sucked that egos of ADs got in the way, and we couldn't keep playing that game when A&M moved to the SEC. Because I think everybody except like the administration really wanted that game to keep happening. And they could have come together and come up with a solution, but as it tends to be with these types of administrations, they didn't really want to talk to each other, and the egos got in the way. With that being said, I'm thrilled that this game's coming back. Even if, again, like you said, even if I wasn't an Aggie, I would still want the A&M and Texas to play each other. Because college football is at its best when you have regional rivalries. Like realignment, that's been my biggest complaint is the death of regional rivalries. For another example, I hate that the cast iron skillet's going away. I hate that TCU and SMU is going away.
100%.
I hate the Apple Cup's going away with Washington and Washington State. We didn't have backyard brawl for a while. That sucked.
100%.
These games are what make college football so special. And I'm glad that, even though we're going to lose some games with Texas, I'm glad that we're getting one back in A&M and the Longhorns meeting on the gridiron.
I completely agree. Hey, and you know what? We were talking about the sensitivity of these Texas fans. We got one in the chat. This guy, Green Wevier, or however the hell you pronounce his name. He says, I can't read the chat because I'm a West Virginia guy. Hey, careful there, man. The other only 2-0 team in the Big 12. It's not just Texas and Oklahoma. And let me remind you that Texas and Oklahoma have not played in the Big 12 title game for the last 2 years. That was Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU, and K-State. So don't count your victories too soon yet, my friend. But Jay, let's talk about how you think this game on Saturday shakes out, though. I think from just this conversation over the last half hour, I think you lean Texas to get it done.
Yeah, and I got Texas at -6. I know the line down there, it looks like we have is -6.5. I wouldn't be surprised to see some more movement on that in Texas's direction. Again, like we go back to Texas kind of playing to their level of competition. They'll play up against OU. I was at that Texas-Wyoming game. Shout out to my Cowboys in the Mountain West. But, that game was tied going into the fourth quarter, 10-10.
Yeah. Against a backup quarterback.
Yeah. Again, against Rice, they struggled.
Yeah.
To start the game out. Obviously, Kansas with a backup quarterback, if Jalen Daniels is in, that's maybe a different game. But I think they also prepared a little bit better for Kansas. They'll be prepared for OU. I like the Longhorns covering this one.
I got you. I'll give out my pick on Thursday. Real quick before we get out of here, let's talk the other games. We talked enough Texas, Oklahoma. Friday night, I mean, I can't remember the last time Mike Gundy's been a double-digit underdog at home. I mean, especially against K-State. I mean, this game, they usually win this game against K-State in Stillwater, but it kind of speaks to volumes about how down Oklahoma State is, especially at the quarterback position. You got to lean in this one, headed into Friday night under the lights.
Yeah, I mean, look, Oklahoma State got blown out by South Alabama. I'm leaning on Kansas State. I don't have any faith in this Oklahoma State team right now. They're not particularly good. They got the win earlier in the year against Arizona State. Is their one FBS win. They struggled with Central Arkansas. I mean, there's just not a lot of positives in Stilly right now, and I just think Kansas State rolls.
Yeah, it's hard to get behind Oklahoma State. This one's interesting because you don't know the status of either starting quarterback. You got Plumlee, you got Daniels. Hopefully Daniels is back. I feel like that line kind of says they don't know who the hell's going to start a quarterback on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's the big thing with this game is I don't know who's going to be there. So it's always hard to make a prediction until we know who's going to be starting a quarterback for both teams. But the one thing we do know so far this year is that the new Big 12 teams, BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston, have not beaten any of the teams that were already in the Big 12. And that's kind of a weird step to throw out, but for that reason, I'm taking Kansas.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, underachievement bowl here, Texas Tech preseason number 4. You also could say the injury bowl because Tyler Shuck goes down. Shapen came back. I don't know how the hell Baylor won last week. That was unbelievable down in Orlando. Baylor's a favorite as of right now. It opened at 3. Any lean in this one?
Yeah, so we like to refer to this as the butt game because you have
Yeah,
Baylor
it is the
BU and
yes,
then
yeah,
Texas Tech TT.
yes,
But
yes,
nah, I mean, I don't really have a feel for this one. Again, Texas Tech without their starting quarterback. Shapen's back. I get why Baylor's favored here, but I just think that Texas Tech has been a little bit better. And I realize that there's struggles without quarterback, with Shu out. But they bounce back with a big one against Houston, and I realize that U of H isn't particularly great this year, but I still think it was an important win for them to get. And I think Waco's kind of a little bit down right now as well. I think a lot of
yeah.
folks are kind of doubting the direction that Dave Aranda has the program headed in. So I'm leaning Tech here.
Well, and the ironic thing is it kind of started the downward spiral when McGuire left from Baylor to go to Texas Tech. So a little bit of a reunion here. Final game on the slate, TCU at Iowa State. Both teams coming off losses. TCU, get that bullshit 14-point spread out of here. Mountaineers on the money line last Saturday in Fort Worth. Cyclones took a beat down from the Sooners, kind of got away from them in the second half. What do you think here? Both teams need a bounce back win. It's a weird.
Yeah,
It's a weird game.
very weird game, and Iowa State's always a very weird place to play. It feels like strange things always happen in Ames. I'm staying away from this game, to be honest with you. I just everything about this one just feels like wrong, as far as I don't have any gut instinct here. It should be an entertaining game. I think it'll probably be pretty sloppy. I'm expecting a bunch of turnovers.
Yeah.
If I take anything, I'm probably going to take the under.
That is fair. So it's kind of weird week because you only got 5 games because you got who's on a bye. BYU is on a bye coming off the big Cincinnati Friday night win. I don't know how they won that game other than Emory Jones just completely self-imploded. Houston's on a bye. They got the Holgerson Bowl against the first place West Virginia Mountaineers, may I add, in the Big 12, 2-0. Tied with Texas and Oklahoma. So the only 3 2-0 teams are the Mountaineers, Sooners, and Longhorns. The Wildcats are 1-0. Prediction time for the whole season. I'm getting all your predictions because I got you for this 45-minute segment. We get to Dallas here in 2 months. Who, I almost said cut down the net because basketball season's around the corner. Who is holding up that trophy in Jerry World first weekend in December?
Yeah, I think it's probably the Longhorns. I know that's kind of the easy answer here, but they just feel like the most complete team at this stage. I think there could be some surprises as far as their opponent there. Your Mountaineers looking really good right now. We know what that identity is. They're a physical run the ball team, right?
Yeah.
That could create some problems. That Kansas State's always a tough program as the season wears on. They're one of those teams that seems to get better later in the year just because they play a pretty physical brand of football. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think Texas is the one that lifts the trophy in the Big 12, but there's still a lot of football left to play, and I think you could be surprised about who's going to join Texas there in Arlington.
I was going to say, if you had to predict right now, will we get to see Red River Shootout one last time in Jerry World?
I think it's going to be Kansas State if I had to pick. I know that the Wildcats, haven't looked particularly strong. But again, I think they get better as the year goes on, and they'll be a tough team to beat.
I can tell you what, the Oklahoma Sooners are thrilled that Kansas State is not on that schedule because they've been kicking their ass these last couple of years.
Look, when I was a Sooner fan and I saw Darren Sproles just go off against OU in 2003 in the Big 12 championship game, it broke my heart as a child. I get it.
Yeah, K-State's always been a thorn in the side of Oklahoma. Iowa State's always been a thorn in Texas's side. I know that they're set. The final game, their final road trip will be in Ames at the end of the year. Texas has had some nightmare trips to Ames over the last couple of years. I mean, the famous one a couple of years ago where they lost by 30, and the famous for recording on the bus. But that was at the beginning of the Sarkisian era. We'll see what happens. Jay, any final thoughts before we get out of here? You're on Texas to win the game Saturday. You got them covering the 6.5 too, right?
Yes, I do. And I know it's off topic, but I'm also taking Kentucky money line on Georgia.
Okay. Oh, wow. There's a hot take. Whoa, shit. Hey, you're an Aggie, man. Do the Aggies get Alabama on Saturday?
Man, I stay away from betting or making predictions about A&M when I can. I think Alabama wins that game, but I think A&M has a real shot. What it comes down to is the Texas A&M defensive line, who's just been great these past 2 weeks. 30 tackles for loss, several sacks. I mean, 30 tackles for loss in 2 games is a defensive lineman's dream, right? And I think that could change the landscape of this game against Alabama. But I just think Milroe is going to hit a couple of deep shots that win the game for the Tide.
Yeah, I mean Saban still remembers that game 2 years ago. If they can get him back to back,
I will be there. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a big crowd going, because that is for the SEC West lead.
Yes, yeah. Honestly, the driver's seat, especially with LSU losing 2 games. So I know it's Big 12 channel, but yeah, I mean we still pay attention to the national landscape. So everybody get over there and follow Jay Arnold over at the Aggie War Pod and get back. Coach, you got any other avenues you want to plug? Shout out to Cameron Kerr, your buddy, by the way, for this graphic. He is responsible for the Horns Down. So all you sensitive ass bitch Texas fans out there, go tweet him. Yeah, it is a Horns Down podcast. So yeah, no, go tweet Cam Kerr. You got anything else you want to plug, Jay?
Nah, I mean, give us a listen on the Aggie War Pod. We talk a lot of different stuff. The Get Back coaches around the world of college football. A lot of stuff there. If you want to check out some of my writing, you can also find me on Good Bull Hunting, which is Texas A&M's SB Nation site. You have Apollo Houston, which is where I do the Tailgate Chronicles, a series where I go around and check out tailgates at different schools. Just posted my whiteout review up on there. And then I have my personal Substack newsletter, Barbecue Bets and Beats, where I talk about smoked meats, sports bets, which I'm not great at, and then musical suggestions for the weekend to get you through the day.
Well, there you go. Go check out all Jay's work. Jay, we got to have you back on. I wish we could get the Aggies back in the Big 12, but that's not going to happen. But we'll have you back on the Big 12 college experience. Or, of course, go check out the college basketball experience. Start our conference previews. Big 12, best damn league in America, man, by far. It's going to be another electric year over in the Big 12. Go check out the main show, the college football experience. Those guys are doing great work. And, of course, go check out the FCS college experience. Don't forget about the FCS. They're not into all this conference expansion bullshit with TV. So
hey,
go check out that.
North Dakota State last week. A little FCS action for you. Not South Dakota State. South Dakota, the Coyotes, not the Jackrabbits.
Yes, no doubt. Yes, the Coyotes, baby. I love the Dakotas, man. So yeah, go check out all the great work. Go check out the main sports gambling podcast. We're back Thursday, picking these 5 games. Giving our betting previews. Hopefully we hit another 33-1 money line parlay like we did week 3, I think it was. So hopefully we can give that out. I mean, there's a couple dogs we could spotlight. We just went through the 5 games, but we'll be back Thursday. Troy and Rush will be back. Enjoy, I guess, the MLB playoffs. That's what we got going on till we got 2 straight months of football every single night with Conference USA. Finally, these damn leagues are playing on weeknights. It's okay to play on Wednesday night. It's okay to play on Tuesday night. The MAC doesn't have to be the only league that plays. Put the fucking games on. We'll bet them. We'll watch them. Please, college football, put us in charge. We know what the hell we're doing. Good luck, everybody, and let it ride.